Oh, good morning.
Good morning. I was reading right when I was like, oh, there's the roar.
And Mark's got this on lock. The roar starts
Man,
us off. That is so true. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing great. You can see I'm back in my office, so that means things are returning to normal in my house. As Jack says, Kevin's back in place. Yes, I am in place. It's been so much nicer. I'm sure I sound a whole lot better. I like the way this video looks a whole lot better. So, yeah, but it was fun having my daughter here before she took off. And I was telling Chris, she was pinging me just before we started prepping for the stream this morning. So, could move across the world and still have to ask questions of her dad. So,
That's fantastic, and that is so awesome. And good morning to everyone in the chat. It is so good to see everyone today. This has rapidly transformed into my favorite day of the week, and not because it's Friday, but because we get to spend time with all of you. So it's good to see everyone. Have anything notable going on this weekend that you're that you're doing? Please let us know. We're love to hear from you. I love to see what you got going on. You know what I just realized is now not the
so
time.
some things when it's better not to always point out the things. I like the honesty and transparency, but
Yeah. So sometimes you gotta wait, pull that one back a bit. Yeah, that's
yeah.
fine.
Ooh, you
Oh,
see, Mark is headed to Florida, and his mom is 75.
wow, that is
Wow, happy
fantastic.
birthday, mom! That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Well, actually, that's where I was going. Next weekend is my birthday, or next Friday is my birthday. So make
Oh,
sure
really?
you tune in for a very special birthday Fabric Friday. So those don't happen all that often. So
No, they'll all fall on this at the same time. That's
that's
gonna be
crazy,
fun.
right? Hey, Heidi, what's going on? Christina's here too. Oh, and everyone is in. Oh, so cool. So,
I,
yep.
Heidi from tomorrow evening. She's in the future.
Yes. So we have a whole bunch of things we wanted to talk about today when it comes to Synapse, data warehouse, different objects, different types of things. But I think, um, uh, I think we have a few things we wanted to hit on before that. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah. Just a couple things. So, do you want to go through the rules first, or did
Oh,
you want to
that's right.
jump right
Gosh,
into
I
this?
am just so far. Got a lot going on right
Everybody knows the rules. They're trustworthy. They're fine.
Yeah, yeah. We don't have such a big group that we have to really worry about this, but the queues really help me call them out to get them queued up. And if you're caught spamming, we got good people will pull you out of that stuff. So just be aware of those things, right? Honestly, this stuff is
super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Those things get me every time. Chris never tells me that he's going to throw these things up, and I'm like, what happened? did I change something? What did I touch?
How did that? What was that thing? Yeah. But yes, we had some things we were gonna want to hit on first. So let's head over to your laptop here.
Okay. And I do want to call out to Heidi again. I feel sorry for you if you're fixing an SSAS multi-dimensional cube. I can't stand those things anymore. Okay. So yesterday, the Power BI September feature summary came out. The one thing I did notice yesterday, and I don't know, Chris, if you've checked this, but when I opened up desktop, I didn't see the little thing that said there's an update to install.
Oh,
Um, So, and I haven't tried yet today, but last night I had to open it for a couple of things, and I'm like, okay, I see the feature summary, but I don't have this update yet. So,
Hmm.
um, maybe it's just kind of propagating through their content network or whatever. So,
Well,
but expect
oh, go ahead. Sorry, we'll keep you up.
yeah. So, but expect to see. I mean, you could probably go up there, go download it, right? But just maybe the thing that triggers that.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, I do want to call out because some people had some questions on this
mm,
today. If you go in, or this week, if you go into the Windows app, oopsies, where the heck am I? And you look for Power BI, you're going to see 3 apps: Power BI, Power BI Desktop, and Power BI Report Builder. These are the only 2 that you should really care about, right? Power BI Desktop's the app that you know and love. Build reports, build models, build all the stuff, published to the server. It's what most people think of when we talk about the Power BI, downloading and installing it. Power BI Report Builder, that is your paginated reports. So this is your old classic SSRS content, right?
mhm.
Now, there is another thing that's out there called the just Power BI. Now, the only times I've ever really seen this installed is by mistake, where people thought they wanted to have the Power BI desktop, but they installed this. All this is a standalone app that allows you to browse reports that have been shared to you. Um, it is being there's no more updates going to be coming after this year on this app. Just basically because go to the browser, right? I mean,
Go
if
to the
you honest,
browser, go to Teams.
yep,
Get,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Kevin, have you ever heard of any company purposely using this solution?
Not a company, but I did have for at a client that I've been at for years. And their management changes out. The VP that I ended up kind of reporting up through, he came on and he put that on, and then he called me up. He's like, "Why can't I do anything with Power BI?" And I was like, going through things, and I'm like, "Well, I don't understand. Can you show me what you did?" And he, we get on a screen share, and he shows me, and I'm like, "Yeah, you don't want
Yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah.
And it took me a while because I don't even think of this thing anymore, right? So it took me a while to kind of think through and
Right.
figure it out.
And Christina is right. If you are
Mhm.
downloading Power BI Desktop, you definitively want to be using. Uh, well, actually, it's it. Oop,
If the app store, yeah, that you're
now
in.
suddenly I've lost. What do I do to lock it? Oh yeah, and control.
Escape?
Yeah, sorry. It's like
Oh.
my brain locked up on me there. Um, this is you want to install it from the Windows Store because it's going to automatically update for you overnight or whenever the new version comes out. Now, note you do have to have Power BI closed on your desktop. Okay, so um, a big thing that I always recommend people is install. Bleh, number one, install it from the store, like here. But number two, every night, just close out all of the Power BI desktops that you have, and then within 24 hours of the release coming out, you'll have the latest version of Power BI Desktop. It's the surest and most true way to get a hold of that.
Now, I think there's also, through corporate, right? They could control the channel that it comes out at and things like that. If your corporation wants to slow it down to, I lost the word in my head of what that is, but there's different release cadences. I think it's called the channel. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that your tenant admin could make settings to say they want to wait 3 months, 6 months, whatever options are available. So that if you and then if that's the case, they probably don't allow you to download and install anyway. So you have to go through the store so they can't control it.
Yeah, and if you were using the Power BI app to browse stuff, just use the embedded Power BI Teams integration, like you mentioned before, Kevin. This is really pretty good. Really easy to, like, if you need to do more than, come on now. just happened? Did I lock my computer? Oh. Well, really easy to switch over to that new service, right?
Yeah. And Enterprise AR was just kind of reiterating a little bit of what I was trying to say, right? Is organizations control Microsoft Store, so manual update is sometimes safer, less glitchy. If they, assuming they allow it. Some places also lock down what you could install. Heidi verified that she didn't get the update notification.
Yep.
And there are some people like myself. I go through the App Store and let it download through the App Store, and I have a version that is manually installed. And you can run both on your machine.
Yep.
You just have to kind of make sure you know which one you're opening at any given time. So there may be reasons for you to do that, and maybe not, depending on what you get. But yeah, let's go back to my screen.
Sure.
So, I think when I saw this, it was kind of later last night, dinner time-ish or later. And the very first thing I noticed was this upgrade, let's see if I got Zoom it going. I don't think I do. Oh, because I reboot it. I'll get that going here in just a second. But you need to make sure if you're going to run this version that you have upgrade to your .NET framework to 4.7.2 or newer. They don't go into exactly why. They just say it won't be supported after the last day of this month. So to avoid any support issues. I wonder if that means it'll still actually run. So, oh, where'd I get that other? Oh, I closed that other window by mistake. Let me see if I can find it. But there is an article. Yeah, if you take that off for just a second, let me go through my history. Shoot. Well, I had the whole thing. Here we go. I found it again.
All right.
You could bring it back again. Let me take this link, put it into our chat so you could put it into all of our setups. But there's a Learn article to help you determine which .NET framework versions you have installed. If you page down on this a little bit, you can see how it's going to tell you what the release value is and what it all means. Your important part is looking at the registry. So this is telling you to use regedit. And you have to have admin credentials on your machine to do this. Then you could go find this key. And then when you find that key, you'll be able to find out the version that you're running.
So a little note of caution here. Editing your registry a lot of people's systems will be locked down. Be very careful, though. You can really permanently mess up your computer in the registry. So please be very careful with this.
Let's see. So here's the query, because I actually found an article outside of Microsoft that talked a little bit easier. Here's a way to just query it, right? If you want to use PowerShell to do that. I saw somebody give us a command. Maybe they don't have it in this learned content. Yeah. Should have prepped, huh?
It's all right.
There's another here. Take me off screen again. Maybe I could find this other one because there was somebody had a better article. It was, of course, outside of Microsoft.
Well, so we might have to.
We might have to punt on this one.
Yeah.
Oh, no, here it is.
Okay. All right. We found.
See, I did prep. I just didn't keep things open. Here's another. I'll put the link over here for you to push out on all of our platforms. But this worked well for me yesterday. You open up a command box, and then you run this reg query instead. And now you're not getting into reg edit. You're just doing a query, and it starts showing you all the versions that are installed.
Well, that's cool.
And we just kind of advertise more ads for this guy or person.
Yeah. Well, I think they'll be all right with that.
I think it's fine.
Yes.
So, and then as I was reading through, Chris, if I could jump into one more thing, and this is what I was reading right when we started. There's this DAX function change, and I know we all love this, but it's to min x and max x, but not min or max, just the x part of them. And it's how to handle variance. First off, if you have variance, I guess if you have to, you have to. But man, I try not to use variance coming into my model. So this is what I was reading just before we went
Kevin,
live.
what's a variant?
So a variant is I'll call it a mixed, in the column itself, in the table, it's keeping mixed data types.
Oh,
right.
My God.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And they're very challenging to work with. There's very odd cases where you might need to do it. Excel treats almost everything as a variant. That's why it's so dynamic. Hey, it knows it could add or it has to do some text-based type of thing, right? But they can also in more what I'll say truer programming languages, right? They could cause all kinds of problems. So Power BI, the DAX engine, supports the variants and handles things some different ways. So here now there's a switch inside max x and min x. By default, it's set to false to say handle it the way it's been handling it now, but you can set it to true to let it know that it is a variant. And what you'll see is that it's now here.
Can you zoom in a little bit? It's a little hard.
Let me get Zoom it going. I didn't start it today for some reason.
Just zoom in or the browser or something. Because one thing I'm seeing on this that I think is important to call out is this is an additional parameter that you may choose to put into your DAX statement. So all of your existing DAX functions are going to, like, this isn't a breaking change.
Right.
This is something you could choose to add in, right?
Right.
So I kind of like that because you can see it on top there. It's just, max X table variant measure, but with it enacted, it's, min X table variant measure, comma, true. So
right. Yeah, and it might have been a little bit easier if they would have highlighted it here, right? Because these two are right next to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but you see what the max does default today, and if you say max and you turn it to true, you see you start getting where the text exists here, right? Because before it ignored text. And so you get the A back and your total gets the A back because that, I guess it's considering it the max against all of these numbers and dates. So, if you need to use it, it's there. Like you said, it won't break anything. If you're using variants, you know it because you better be paying close attention to them. But most of the time, you want to properly type your columns.
To me, I think this is a niche need, and if you know, if you don't, don't.
Exactly.
Hey, I think there is a super cool feature down here. Can you scroll down in the features here just a little bit?
Okay.
It's on the visuals. Like there is one. Well, number one, I love this. The new enhancements for testing row level security out in the service. That is fantastic.
Yeah, somebody pinged me about that. I needed to look into this a little bit more.
Yeah, that is awesome because you can actually even do a person now. You can put in an ID, and if you have dynamic row level security on there, you'll see what they see in the service, which is fan freaking tastic.
Yeah.
Instead of just like a generic role, right?
Yeah, they seem to hit up at least some of the tenants about a week ago because I had somebody message me that he always has he's been struggling testing his row level security. He's like, "Hey, did you see this?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't." So I'm glad it's in the announcement now. I need to go through it some more as well.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
so the one I really want to call out with is Uh, well, number one, if anyone has worked with the Git and paginated, I've got lots of questions around this. Paginated has had some holes in it when it comes to deployment, switching data sets, changing database names, not having variables and stuff like that. That's easily configured. I'd like to reach out to me. I've got questions for on that because I just haven't worked with it much. But scroll down to the visuals, and I think it's called the beehive or bee chart. It's the bee swarm chart. This here, scroll down just a little bit. This is fantastic when you're talking about groups and clusters of information and understanding what's going on inside of the service. I absolutely love this, and I love that it clusters everything without
Hmm.
overlap, right? Like that's something that is incredibly important because as you're looking at this, you can really start to tell the distinct items in there. So as you're doing like large population analysis, it becomes increasingly easy for you to see like, okay, hey, here's individual people, here's individual products, right? This is how teams or groups are functioning. If you scroll down, you can even, yeah, there's the one.
Oh,
You can even start to manage like your organization like this. Can you zoom in on this?
yeah.
Now, this is huge when it comes to like trying to help people understand like how are they faring, how are they doing when it comes to their position inside of a large organization, like especially like sales teams and people who have competitive metrics that are out there and are competing for things, because there's lots of organizations where that type of gamesmanship is something that people really engage with, right? And this
Hmm.
is a great way to make that visible and like see whoever that guy is that's that outlier way up at the top. You can see that he's pulled away from that group,
Hmm.
and that's incredible, right? So really looking forward to doing more with this. I can't wait to play with this visual.
Who's the maker of it? The
Uh,
custom visual from App Source. See if they tell us. Hmm.
yeah, interesting. And I didn't see that it was a premium thing either. So in
Oh,
ooh,
okay.
Zuby
So
Zubair.
Zubair.
Okay. Oh, Excel and Access.com. Hmm. All right. Well, uh, oh, oh no, it is please purchase a visuals license for a 1 year period. Oh, well, it's at least it's for an unlimited number of users and viewers. That's good. Um,
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this part of the update because they're
uh-oh.
just promoting other companies, right? Which is it's good to know what's out there as custom visuals, but it's easy to think that these are Microsoft visuals,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
just like that, it's you got to know to look for it inside this update,
Yeah.
right? And I get people that hey, why can't you just use this visual? Okay, do you have a purchase order that we could buy it? No, I can't get that. So
Yeah. No, no, you're exactly right. And I think that's being called out by Aman too. Like
hmm
these paid services, and I completely understand, like, hey, companies are doing a lot of work to like update these. Like it is not easy to get something in the Microsoft store. Kevin, have
hmm
you ever like
no, never
attempted
had
to
to
go down
try it.
that route?
I
Okay.
think you did, right?
Yeah, I spent 3 months on it, and then I eventually just gave up. And
Yeah.
Because like I'm sure once you get everything set up, it's easier, but it's not a just like, hey, deploy something and post it out or send
Right.
some software into a Git repo. It is an unclear path forward to make it work. So I get that side of it, but it is just, it's hard in organizations and companies that, especially larger ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you manage like 110,000 people wanting to like add in visuals and pay for that? Like, companies don't have that type of a mechanism for managing those types of expenses, right? So
Right. Well, but that's why you have the tenant settings, right? There are tenant settings to restrict adding custom visuals, or you could only do it from visuals that your company's determined, right? Now, do a lot of companies know about those tenant settings and actually do them? Your ones that are the bigger enterprises, probably yes, because they have people like you and I that kind of dig into some of these things. But a lot of other ones, they just leave their settings as they come out of the box,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, they have a visual that, man, I remember on a support forum years ago, somebody pinged everybody going, man, I'm in a bind. I have this custom visual. We got it in I don't know. I think he said either tens or maybe up to 100 reports, and he didn't realize that the vendor basically went out of business and it stopped working.
Yeah.
And they had critical reports they couldn't get out anymore. And they're like, yeah, we don't know what to do. I'm like, yeah, don't know what you're going to do either.
Yeah, terribly sorry. And that is very true, right? Like, so, like for example, like I've got a lot of videos on narrative science because narrative science has a great natural language generation capabilities, tons of tons of features, really easy to configure, and that I believe is gone now, right? When Salesforce bought them, they said, okay, you got to end of life all your Power BI visuals because you're just going to be in Tableau. And I think any company that was dependent upon that was just left out to dry. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But this is what, for people who aren't aware, you can, you could set up these enterprise visuals or organizational visuals uh, out in the admin place or admin area. Anytime visuals get updated that are installed through here, they'll update in all your reports. So that's a big plus. But it also allows you to uh, say which visuals you want available to everyone inside your organization, right? And automatically too. So, for example, I've got the bullet chart, the chiclet slicer, the advanced card, and the Deneb visual all set up and available, right? Whoopsies. And now if I go into my Power BI desktop, when I just open a new file, I've got that chiclet slicer. I've got all of those already configured and available inside of my Power BI desktop, and I'm just good to go without having to do anything. So it's a great way to get access to this as well as distribute those paid apps, right?
Yep.
Paid videos.
Yeah. And then like even that, some of them aren't paid, but you're encouraging people to use some common ones,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to standardize on Deneb, right?
Yep.
Or, saying, hey, you need to do something custom because it feels like Charticulator has kind of fallen out of the scenes, right? And
Yep.
Deneb has won that battle, which is great. Deneb's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it's still being supported. I think I've seen things on Twitter where he's getting new versions out and everything. So, but you could now, if people are coming up, so should I use this or that? Well, you put it in here in your tenant settings, and you're encouraging them to use the one you want. So,
yep. And if you've created a custom visual, like you've gone to the extent, like, and honestly, if you if you know like JavaScript, these custom visuals are not rocket science, right? Like people who are programmers and worked in Java, or heck, even if it's not you, but you can borrow somebody who knows that stuff for a sprint or two. They can come up with some amazing custom visuals with relatively a low lift around it. In fact, I saw this incredible 3D like cube that rotated on an axis that you could drag and drop it, and like it was like a 3D bubble chart that spun on different axes, and it was fantastic. And someone who knew JavaScript churned that out in like a 2-week period. So tons of stuff you can do in there. And of course, you could go in and you can add from the app source. And in fact, I'm wondering that. Okay, I already have the tab. Okay, because I thought there was an update on this one.
No, I don't think he's got it into the release channel yet.
Okay.
There's been stuff on the socials where Daniel has been asking people to help test his next version, right? And so I think you kind of connect with him, or again, I don't follow that as close. I see it on socials. I haven't messed with it a whole lot. Add it to the long list of, hey, more things I should be looking into. One of these days. That and SVGs, right? SVGs are think the improvements that they've made for using that is making SVGs wonderful in visuals. I've seen a lot of things on socials that people have put together.
Yes, agreed. And actually, Heidi's calling out Dale Marsh Patrick is awesome, and you're seconding that. I'm going to third that, and I'm going to recommend you go over to the Deneb GitHub repo, and if like you have an extra like $5, $10, like sponsor him a month. The more people that can get behind him doing this, the less his wife gets on him when he's not. Let's give him and his wife a night out every month or something like that, right? Like let's. It's a real sacrifice, the amount of work he's doing in. I know it's a labor of love, but let's recognize him. And I've been kicking in $10 a month for a little while on that, just because he does a good job. So, nice. He's going to be in New Zealand on SQL Saturday. We are going to be at SQL Saturday in September 30th in Minnesota. So please, if you are in the area at all, think about heading over there. I know, Donald, you're debating the trip over. Come on over. It'd be great to see you again in person, and we got some good stuff to show.
Yeah, I realized that's like 2 weeks away.
Yeah, gotta get on those presentations, Kevin.
Yeah, I do. Actually, I put that on my board because I got to revamp that presentation, and I still think I have a little bit of travel things to set up. So nothing like last second. Flight and hotels booked. So once that's set, everything else I worry about later. So
yeah, it's one of my presentations. I've literally been working on like the code base for like 6 years. So like I'm excited to like bring it up into light, but like some of the older code, like I just realized I haven't touched it in a while, so I got to make sure that it still functions and stuff. And I've got new laptops, so I got to install all that stuff. So
and Christina Hughes will be there, right? So she's been a big part of that, I believe, right? Because I think she was, Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were on the board or whatever that's helping put that event together. So I've been watching the speaker announcements on LinkedIn. There's a lot of there's some people that I followed in the SQL side from years ago that I know are going to be there. So there's some very powerful speakers there. I'm going to be doing I'm Not Worthy as I'm up there. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have really gone a little stray from our topic here.
We chewed up time today.
Yeah. But that's all right. Lots of stuff to talk about in here, but let's let's get on this stuff. I mean, I think some of these things, and please, if you have best practices around some of these topics that we're going to be talking about, put those into the chat. We want to hear about uh, hear about them from you, so that we can relay them to others, and could just share these best practices, because some of these things have been around for a while. And so what we're primarily going to be talking about today are functionality that exists inside the Synapse data warehouse that's inside of Fabric that people now have access to. And we want to just kind of call out how that works. And then we might, if we have time, but we've been talking quite a bit here, we might go on to uh, how we can how we can use compare this to Direct Lake. Fernando, I am using my magic lights. You just can't see them.
I think he's mentioning like your halo light. I think you packed that up.
Oh, that is off. Yeah. So maybe I'll turn that on when you get to talk. So. But I just want to get into this. So I'm heading into my AdventureWorks Lakehouse workspace here. So I want to get into my Synapse stuff. So I am gonna I've got too much stuff here. There's a ton. So I want to just head over to my warehouse. So I'm gonna filter down to my warehouses, and I can see that I've got 2 of them. Okay. Now I don't care about this staging warehouse here. This is just used for data flows that are coming in. This is going to be hidden from us and inaccessible. Don't use this. If you're watching this video like a year from now, hopefully it'll be gone. You won't be able to find it, but don't use that. Bad, right? Don't touch this guy. It's just a back end thing. You want this one right here. Just the warehouse that you've created, and you'll be refreshing. Okay.
Boy, I'm hoping that goes away in like a week.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, the awesome thing about having this as a service is I think there's always one update to the service every single week. They have a slot for a second. So if they have regular code changes that didn't make it in the first, that they want to put in the second, they'll do that update in the second. And then there's even a third slot for code changes to go in that could go in and hit the service. And so we can see up to 3 changes on a week on these types of things. And I mean, honestly, straight up, that talks a great deal to the value of having a robust CI/CD pipeline. So
yeah, it moves amazingly fast.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. So let's talk about what is it that we're going to see inside of what are the objects that we're going to be talking about inside of Synapse. And so big ones we're going to start with is schema, tables, views, functions, and stored procedures. All right. So Kevin, can you define for us what a schema is, and why would someone use a schema?
Yeah, I tend to think of a schema as a container to help you organize the objects below it, right? So the default one that everybody knows of is DBO. But we could see you have one called raw that you added. You could see even Microsoft adds a couple other ones to help organize different parts. The information schema is wonderful. A lot of good things there. But like I said, it's used to help you organize your other objects. You could have tables, views, functions, stored procedures. So yeah, it's user created is the other ones. What I tend to see a lot of times is when you get something that's going to be your gold level, you could have a schema that's called dim for all your dimensions to go into, and a schema called fact for all your facts to go into. And then it helps you, rather than having like dbo dot sales fact, right? You could have in the fact schema fact dot sales, and then you still know that's your fact table, and you have a little bit friendlier name to it. So
You're missing an interesting layer here. What about that silver layer?
If you're going to do your silver layer here, right, within there,
Mhm.
I tend to use kind of two schemas that I do kind of controls with.
Mhm.
I tend to call it stage, like STG, or some
Mhm.
people I see spell it out as stage. Um, I tend to have another common one that I call ETL, which may be things that I need that are kind of transient for the ETL process, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm going to create, especially up here, since you don't have the concept of temp tables,
Mhm.
but it can in a stored
And
procedure.
in a data warehouse, you do.
No temp table, the hashtag tables, like create
Yeah.
temp table, that's not supported in data warehouse yet today. Yeah,
Really? Oh, okay.
that's still a limitation. Well, it says that if you use them, that
Mhm.
you may not get the proper results. So
Oh,
what
okay.
I've done
All right.
in stored procedures, and we're jumping a little bit, but if I needed to like run a query and then save those results, I'll put it into either
Well, hang on. Let's evolve over to
slow
that.
down,
All right.
Kevin.
Yeah. Um,
But
so I'm gonna put a little plug in here. If you're talking about how you should manage the silver layer, there is a concept that has been around for a little while, that really starts to get into addressing a gap inside of the a gap inside of, like, the Kimball space, which is, how do you handle this silver layer? And it's actually another live stream that we've got going
mhm,
on around Data Vault. This is a great way to manage all of your data at that silver layer, without having to worry about losing any data, losing the state of data at any point in time, and for how you can make it more easily accessible. It's really pretty impressive, and uh, I think it was very challenging to do that. I mean, while the technical capabilities were awesome, it was challenging with just straight ETL or
mhm,
straight like Python. And I'm going to run some notebooks for you to create and manage uh, a data vault schema. In fact, when I saw how it works and stuff, I just said, no, that's too much effort. There's too much engineering that goes on in there. Um, I think with the new plugins and what's now capable inside of tools like DBT, that makes it much easier to leverage and use. Now, DBT has a new integration with Synapse Data Warehouse that makes it so you can use DBT in Synapse. So that's awesome.
mhm.
We're waiting on the plugin that makes Data Vault super easy to support as Fabric and Synapse, but that's just a matter of time. So,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah, and I'll admit I couldn't watch it live. I had something else going on this Wednesday, but
Mhm.
I started catching up on it yesterday, and I plan on catching up before the next one. But yeah, what I've
Awesome.
seen so far, I think I'm about a quarter halfway in. It's pretty interesting.
Okay, and so the first session, if you want to go back and watch, is like, what is the data vault at
Mhm.
like a high level? Just like, why would you use a star schema, right? And we realized as we were talking through it, like, hey, this is like 50 minutes of why, and what is it before we got into the text. So that's why we split it up into two sessions.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah. All right. So we talked about schemas. Any other schemas people like uh, uh, to include inside of a data warehouse?
Those are my main ones. I may have also, um, depending on the naming, like if you're doing something that you have what I call control tables, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to make a decision whether I put those into ETL or if I create a whole new schema called control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are things that I wouldn't say it's totally metadata, right? But it's configurable items that you put into that, right? You may have a set of ETL or whatever that you could put the select statement in a control table and bring it in. So it's a lot, you're not having to deploy code. You could just do, um, changes to the data in the table. So
Yeah, and I'm gonna and I see Donald's comment here hey, you probably don't need it, and Mark Walters said, hey, straight to the point. I'm gonna say there are many things in this world that are akin to uh, what I call religions, business religions. Hey, thou must always have a star schema. Thou must always follow the agile framework. Thou must, and I think if we lose sight of how we practically build and work, we're doing it wrong, right? Like like I relate that to the preacher in the church who never gets out and walks among the people, right? Like he's lost sight of what it is like to be to work and operate in society and relate to people and deal with life's tragedies. But that's why it's important to learn how you should be behaving, how you should be acting, and then learn how to use as much of that as you possibly can. So, uh, satellite modeling, while I thought that was new to me, as I've started to go deeper and deeper into this, I realized, oh, hang on, these are just calling out techniques that I've used for a very long time. I just didn't have a name for it or a rationale for why I would use a technique at a certain point in time. And this helped me bring structure to it and realize, you know what? I wasn't using it here, and I should, because the reason I was using it was the following things.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I would agree with you. All right, even if you think, hey, I don't need it, or you never need it, learn that because you could maybe apply the technique. Maybe it's not exactly 100% of the techniques, but then,
right.
like you said, when you're looking at something, especially if you're doing greenfield, and you go, oh wait, all the requirements that I'm hearing already, it leads good to this technique. But if you don't know the technique, if you don't know what you're kind of looking for, then you're not going to go to it. So open-minded is always best. I did see Christina mention, we asked about another schemas. I think this is what she means here, is it can be helpful to use schema RLS for security tables or something similar. That could be an interesting way. Again, it's how you kind of name things. Donald mentioned that it could be hard, right? But also, think about folders on your computer, right? It just helps you find things soon, faster and easier, and know what it's related to.
Yep.
So what other objects did you want to get into as we're pushing?
Well, yeah, we are. So the other, right. The other thing I wanted to hit on are views. Kevin, you want to give us a basic definition of what a view is and why would you use a view?
Yeah, what I tend to tell people is a view is a stored query, right? So you're going to have a query that's stored in there. A lot of people just beginning the SQL kind of think of a view and a table about the same, and that the data is stored that way. And that's what's critical about a view is the table has storage, where a view is the results of a query against that storage, right? Where you may be joining things together or whatever, but in a default type view, and there is a concept called materialized views, right? That does have storage along with it. I can't recall whether it's in Fabric or not. But yeah, you could use the views for your ETL. I also tend to use my views for architectural isolation. So what I mean by that is my data sets. I'm gonna give a hard rule, and then of course sometimes I break my rules. But as a hard rule, my data sets never directly connect to tables. They always go through views, even if the view starts out as select every column from that table. The reason
Yeah.
being is it allows me to modify the underlying table and then at a later time modify the actual data set.
Yeah, Kevin, I agree 100% with that. I think it's a very strong pattern to have a view as what you connect to on everything versus that table underneath. Because yeah, like you said, if I have to make any changes, or let's say I need to replumb my customer table,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, maybe my customer table that I'm pulling from SAP, has slightly different names or whatever that I've then shifted for, ease of use in my BI layer. And then I switch from SAP as my source, for customer information over to Dynamics. Then I could just load my Dynamics table, make sure that I've got my mapping right. And then all I have to do is on the view, swap that view, like that back end,
Mm-hmm.
where is that information coming from? And my downstream processes don't change.
Exactly. It
Now,
has saved me so many times, right? Um, like you said, just some column changing, whether you have to change a name or whatever. But yeah, go ahead. I was just looking at that question too.
yeah, Nadim is asking, like, hey, when views are complex, they feel slow in Power BI. Is that right? I think that it's actually the other way around. They're
It's
slow on the back
right.
end, right? They're going to take longer to query from the database, and so therefore they're going to take longer to load into your Power BI model. Okay, um,
Now,
but views
now you
are.
are the key word that you mentioned there was load. So if you use an
Mhm,
import mode, of course, it's only slow during the import time, which maybe
yep,
you could live with. But if you're using direct query and you have a poor performing view, yes, your Power BI visual will be poor performing also. But it's
yep,
not Power BI, it's your view.
yep, and uh, I think tables and views are what differentiate. In fact, this is when you hear people talk about ETL, you've extracted it, you transformed it, you've loaded that data into a table. The last step is this load. ELT, which is extract, load, and transform, what they're saying is you haven't loaded it in this. The last step here is transform. So that's that view. But ELT will eternally, foreverly be subject to potential speed and performance issues where the only mitigating step is that last materialized load view, which is a load. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I will, like, any of you stupid vendors out there who say, like, well, you've got a new ELT solution. Like, no, you don't. You've just created some new way to do views. That's all it is. Shut up. That's been around forever. This is garbage. You're going to end up having to materialize it, and it's going to have to be loaded. So um, it's only ever ETL. Everything else is just marketing. So,
Yep.
but we are running very late,
Yeah.
and we have some other things I want
Let's
to
hit
talk about.
Mark's thing. It's interesting, no delta icon on that table. Well, remember, Mark, we're in the warehouse object, not the lake house object. But
Yep,
behind the scenes, these in the warehouse, the tables are stored as delta tables.
yep, yep. And quick, uh, what is it that you use functions, or what is a function, and what do you use it for, Kevin?
So I'm going to say I haven't used a lot of them. I have
Hmm.
in the past, right? But the functions could break down into multiple things, and I don't know if you could expand. You have to take your zoom off. But there's table-based functions and scalar functions, right? So let's say that you just want to have a simple math type of thing of cost times quantity, and you want to send the cost and quantity to a function, and it does. You have maybe some more complex logic around that or something, but that's going to have you're going to be able to isolate that logic into that function, call it, and then have it always return the same result. So that could be a way to help share code and isolate code changes. Okay.
Yep.
In SQL Server, historically, because that's single threaded, they run slowly. So the recommendation in SQL Server is to always look at using what's called table functions, right? Table view functions, TV. So the function itself, instead of returning just a single value, returns a table. And that could be optimized better within the normal SQL Server engine. I haven't researched how that works in Fabric yet. But that I do like the table functions more than the regular functions. And I usually try to switch to that for performance reasons. But again, it's a way to kind of share, think of just even a function in code, right? Or other coding languages. You could define it, create it, share it, and now you only have one place to change it.
Correct. And I think the last thing I'll say on functions before we go to store procs is the big reason that this is important is it allows us to migrate more and more content from like an on-prem SQL solution or a SQL solution into Synapse, because this brings a lot of parity in situations where it's already built. And actually, that's one of the other big reasons for stored procedures too. And why I think the Synapse is a good solution for a lot of people. The Synapse Data Warehouse part of Fabric versus the Lakehouse, because of that parity and functionality with stored procedures. Kevin, what are the big types of stored procedures that you're used to?
Well, so when you have some complex logic that you're doing for, say, transformation, it's great to put it into a stored procedure, right? Another thing that I'll do is I'll have kind of coordinating stored procedures, right? I may have multiple stored procedures, and then I have one driver, right? That's going to help me coordinate if I could call those sequentially, or I need to call them sequentially. So you have to kind of think about that part. What you'll see in typical SQL Server is stored procedures. You're using a lot of temp tables, right? So that hashtag table within there, but that's currently not supported in Fabric. So what I've done recently to get around it, and it seems to work fast enough, is I have a schema. Sometimes I think I've been using my STG schema for this. Actually, I probably should use a different one. But I will have a query, take the result of that, store it into what I consider a temp table, and then go and pass that on to my next query, right? So I could logically break out my steps in the stored procedure. So I could see it a whole lot easier than one big select statement. We would do that a lot in regular SQL Server to get performance through on it, right? So, a lot, keeping a lot of logic, right? Get, update, insert, delete as you're drawing out here. Yeah, you're spot on.
Yep. And again, just like databases, these are the typical patterns that we see. Is like, let's get data. So you have a stored procedure that allows people to pull in just certain data, right? Let's update something, let's insert a record, or let's delete things. This gives you as an owner a lot more finer controls, right?
Right. A lot more finer control, especially on the Git, than what you would do in a view. And then a lot of my stored procedures, I'll combine the update and insert together, right? And almost have an upsert stored procedure where it's doing the logic to try to figure out what it needs to do itself, right? But if you're doing a transactional system, you'll tend to have all four of these, set up, because think of it like almost like an API type of thing, right? In fact, some are even stood up with APIs from there.
Oh, wow.
Made it through the end of that.
So that was a breakneck pace on all the different objects, best practices, how you can get that up and running, preceded by a long-winded ramble of updates for the week. So hopefully that is helpful for people. like, thank you for like joining in.
Great conversation today. Great. Thanks for everybody for
Yes.
contributing in the chats. It's a lot of good questions.
Yep. So we already kind of plugged it. Next week I've got did I upload this? Yes. My user group is Madison Fabric user group is in person. We're going to be live streaming it due to popular demand. So this will be available Tuesday at 6 p.m. This is going to be the first time we're live streaming this. So if you're in or around Southeast Wisconsin, please come over and join us. We'll have pizza, beer, that good stuff. But if you're not, you can tune into this channel and see Brian Julius's presentation on Drill Through Like a Boss. Advanced techniques to elevate your reports. Me and him talked about this like 6 months ago. I am super excited about this conversation. So
yeah, he has a lot of great knowledge if you follow him on socials and everything. So I may tune in. That's my wedding anniversary, 25 years, but my wife will be doing schoolwork, so we're not celebrating till the weekend.
All right. And then next week we're going to be talking about how would you go about. Well, actually, and I already talked about Wednesday, which is part 2 of Vault. But next week, we're going to be talking about what are the best practices around supporting a Fabric solution inside your organization. So, like, we are pre-GA. What would it mean to support it now? What is it going to mean when, like, who knows? Microsoft could come out tomorrow and say, like, Fabric is GA now. What is that going to mean to you to support that inside your environment? So I can't wait to have the conversation.
That'll be interesting. I can't wait to hear what I have to say.
All right. Anything else, Kevin, before we're late. We gotta run.
Yeah, I think that was enough. Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.